Hello everyone, welcome back to the Laser Sports Academy stream. Today, I'm joined by Runt and Moldy. We're going to be going over the top 15 predicted teams for ZLTAC 2023. Very exciting. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. How are we?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, all good.
Right. Yeah, so, I don't know. I don't think I have much to say before we go, other than if you haven't watched any of the predictions or reviewed things before, what we'll do is we'll go through each of the teams in order, starting from 15th. We'll go through the first. We'll cover their strengths of the team, weaknesses, and then talk about some of the standout players on the team as well. There is 15 teams. The last stream ended up going for 2.5 hours. I'm aiming for 2 hours today, so we're just gonna smash through it. You boys got anything you'd like to say before we jump right into it?
I don't think so.
Got nothing.
So, no whackers. All right, allow me to share my screen. We've already got like 3 people asking for a run in the hammock.
Unlucky. I already did that.
You missed it. It was an exclusive event. Feels bad if you weren't there. Also, everyone, one last thing. We're presenting it differently this time. I don't know why I haven't done this way every time. But instead of just looking at the spreadsheet, I'm just going to be using a Google Slides. And Lilbo requested some cringe school work type animations, and I've obliged. We got the cube animation, and we've got our 15th place team, Anomaly. So I had Anomaly predicted for 13th. Runt had them in 18th. Moldy had them in 16th. Community had them in 16th, which gave them a final prediction of 15th. Something as well I'd like to point out. So we're going to be the final predictions. We're done using myself, Runt, Community, and then Drake and Sega's predictions. Moldy wasn't able to get his in time. Tough luck, mate. So his weren't included in the final predictions, but we're still gonna just show it just to so Moldy has an opportunity to throw shade at people that is predicted low. But yeah, cool. 15th place Anomaly. On the team we have Axiom, Zeph, Exile, Crow, Benny, and Wheezy. So we've got some of the familiar faces from their debut in 2022 in Bendigo. So Jesse or Axiom is still leading the charge in the captain position. Zeph's still on the team. Crow is still on the team. But then now they've picked up Exile, Benny, and Wheezy. Exile, obviously, long-term player. Benny played on Aegis last year, and Wheezy is a newbie, hence all the not available things. Also, in the slides, I'm displaying some stats. The stats are all from the Helios Pro, like overall base dump results. So the number of comps is how many Helios Pro ZLTACs they've been to, and then the games is how many of those they've played. And all the stats is the average across all of their appearances in Helios Pro ZLTAC tournament. So it doesn't include pre-nuts, though. For the people that have only been to pre-nuts 3 in Hobart, I did include those stats. But yeah, I guess if the music's a bit loud, we'll turn it down a smidge, Queenie. Thank you, mate. Is that a bit better, Queenie? Is that a bit better chat? Excellent. Turn everything up. I don't think I can turn everything up, Wax, but I can turn the music down so you can hear us a bit better. Anyway, so strengths for this team. I think having the core roster the same from last year is obviously going to be an advantage. I think it's really important, especially for teams wanting to break into like the top tier. I think almost one of the prerequisites is having a group of people that you play with year after year after year, and being able to build upon those like little synergies and stuff. So I was going to do this team some favors, and then also the pickups they made from last nationals are really strong pickups as well. So obviously Exile's been to 4 nationals. Everyone knows Exile does the tricky bloody spinny thing me's. Benny, first year player as well, but Benny's really been picking up his game in the last year of training. He's made 2 appearances at pre-nuts as well in Hobart, and he's been, Moldy would attest to it as well. He's been doing a pretty damn good job. What do you reckon, Moldy?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Benny's a player I would highlight on this team for sure. Very reliable attacking player at pre-nets for me. Got a lot of bases. Often I wasn't even aware I'd come back home. He'd be like, "Moldy, I've got red." I'm like, "Oh, sweet. That's awesome." He had some really good stats at pre-3. I think somewhere around 40th on the solo ladder, which for a relatively new player, really impressive. Really good tag ratio. Big gun for this team.
Yeah, good comms too. That was definitely a highlight of his game, I noticed.
For sure.
So how many of these players are the same as in Bendigo, and where did they finish in Bendigo? Sorry.
So Axiom, Zeph, and Crow were all on the Bendigo team, and they finished 21st place. I think they did have a pretty rocky first nationals. I think there was a lot of. I definitely knew they could at least climb to 18th. I could see them even coming 16th, based on training and stuff. But I think they just had some internal things going on, and they just kind of went on a downward slope towards the end of the comp. But this team, in training for the last year, they've been one of the harder working teams we've had in Adelaide. They one of the teams that more consistently has like their full roster at a training session. Um, and yeah, they've been doing really good. You know, they'll be in games against Apex and Aftershock in training, and they'll be like, you know, actually not just like, you know, scraping by. They're actually like making good decisions. You know, making plays, getting bases, making their base difficult to defend.
Yeah.
Which on that note, Wheezy's a brand new player. He's been playing like 6 months, if that. Um, but he's I think he's like 21 years old, but he's like a big dude, like 6 foot, and he's like very broad. He's like a mechanic, right? So he's built like a brick shit house. So he's got a since he like as soon as he started playing League, he was immediately started doing private lessons with me. Not to toot my own horn, I think they have helped quite a lot in his just general play style and stuff. He's filling the last line position for this team. Left-hander, big boy, but very quick. And yeah, he's been doing actually a very, very exceptional job in training and stuff. And like I said, there'll be games against Aftershock, Apex, and this dude is like, if you don't, you know, if you just like rush it and you just go in, like he's gonna get you. Like he doesn't. You know what I mean? Like for a player of 6 months, you know, if you're a good player, you like they could be looking at you like, I'm just gonna lunge him anyway, and I'll probably get him. No, this guy, you need to go about it properly, like a good last line. So
Yeah, interesting.
That's been really good to see.
And he'll be last lining in Hobart, you reckon?
Yeah, he'll be their main last line.
Interesting. Yeah, okay, that definitely helps him out because I was wondering who was going to anchor on this team. But yeah, I've heard a lot of hype about this team, and I was a bit confused given their Bendigo result because yeah, I thought they were almost wooden spoon game team. But yeah, the pickups are definitely huge for this team, like Exile, Benny, and it sounds like they've got a good new player. So that does make sense. But yeah, that's probably why I graded them a bit lower than others.
Yeah, I think they actually said it themselves. I was talking to Axiom and Zeph, and I was talking to them, and they were like, "Dude, why did we get predicted so high? Like we came 21st last year," and I think it was just yeah, just like, you know, they were at Prenets 1. I think they represented themselves well. Obviously, there's lots of Benny hype, lots of hype on Exile coming back as well. And yeah, they've just been performing really well in trainings and stuff. So yeah. In terms of a standout player for me, it's got to be it's got to be Benny. Benny's just been really impressing me. Just inside of games, but also outside of games. You know, his mental part of it, like his just he's very mature for like a 15-year-old kid. And he's got a really good head on his shoulders, and he's very well tempered as well. Like I very, very, very rarely see him get tilted. And even if he does, it's not like a downward spiral tilt. It's just kind of like he'll have a couple shit moments, and you can see it's like frustrating him, but like he's able to recover from it as well, I think. So Benny's going to be my stand-up player for this team, and then also just a special mention for Wheezy being a first-year player. And I think he's going to really impress a lot of people, especially in these bases as a big boy left-hander.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely echo Benny. I reckon he played exceptionally in Hobart, picked up H2 well, so I think he'll be strong.
Yeah. Have you either of you got anything you'd like to add about Anomaly before we move on?
Just gonna add on to Benny, like Exile as well. Obviously, he's been around for a while, but like he really impressed me at Pre 3, just with pack skill and just playing in the maze. So I think that's a huge addition to the team. Like I thought he would have been a good pickup for either of the other two Adelaide teams. So I think their rating here is pretty justified.
Yeah, I think, and I think also just having, I think something that's put this team above like a team like Adrenaline, for instance, from home, where they are very evenly contested at home. It's just the fact that these guys were able to go to Prenuts 1 with most of their roster, and then Jimmy ended up going to Prenuts 2 and 3, and then Benny's been to Prenuts 3 as well. So just like having more H2 experience than the other Adelaide teams below them is what kind of, I think they very easily, if they hadn't got to any Prenuts, they probably would have been bottom 15. But yeah, they were able to get some H2, some Hobart stuff, and so that's squeaked them into the top 15. But yeah, any last things to add about Anomaly before we move on? No, groovy. Well, yeah, good luck to Anomaly. I'm really excited for them to be able to play with this new roster and yeah, kind of show people what they've been working on. Yeah, Shaka, let's go. Moving on to our 14th place team. We have the. You like the cube transition? You like that?
Oh, it looked like it was dying.
Oh, really?
I don't
That's
know if
good.
it
That's
came through on stream, but
that's
yeah.
even better. Even
It was
better.
like crawling through in its last legs.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a W in my books. So Aubrey Outlaws. On the team, we have Pat King, Whippet, Campster, Vexum, Invictus, and Brownie. So the same roster that played Prenats 3. I had them in 17th. Rund had them in 14th. Moldy had them in 13th. Community had them in 14th, and they got a final prediction of 14th place. I forget who we said was going to talk about these guys. I haven't got the spreadsheet up.
I think it's me. Yeah.
Oh, you, Moldy.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting that I've put this team just a little bit higher than everyone else and significantly higher than New Homes. Probably because I spent so much time getting my ass handed to me by Wicket in the maze at pre-3. Yeah, interesting team, like some experience and then a couple of new players in Vexum and Brownie. Brownie, I believe, being a late pickup for the team, you said earlier, after pre-3, but was a pretty decent tournament for essentially a new player. I think this team will do really well because it's like the maze suits their kind of style, like very brawly style. Like you've got between like Packing and Whippet, there's like a lot of like brawling firepower on the team. Cam as well, really impressive standout player for me. Just very quick, very good base attack. Just like a strong team. They don't seem to panic. They picked up a pretty decent blue strategy, which was just pick the base that is harder to shoot.
They could also defend it, but what's that about?
They also defended it. Like they're like the defenders on the doors are just keeping people out. They adapted to the packs like really quickly, which I guess if they have, I'm not sure if Aubrey are on Helios now, but I know they were on Nexus, and like it's clear that they understand that kind of play style.
I believe they're still on Nexus.
They're still on Nexus. Well, then that to me explains a lot about the way they're currently playing in the game. In terms of like weaknesses for the team, I guess like they have two very new players, so no matter what kind of combination of players they're going to field, someone in the maze is going to be a target essentially. Even though Vex did very well, I think notably getting a couple of bases to get them a big win on finals day. I forget the game exactly, but you're only as strong as your weakest player essentially, and they've got a lot of inexperience there. Yeah, that's what I've got.
I think that's probably a fair assessment. If you were to choose one standout player on the team, who would it be, Moldy?
I'm gonna say Whippet, only because it's unusual for someone to brawl me and take me apart to that extent, and I haven't forgotten it. Yeah.
No, I like we call Vexum a new player, but like child me still remembers him in Aubrey. Like he's been around for so long playing competitions and stuff, just no ZLTACs, and that definitely came through at Prenats. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's definitely interesting to note Whippet, insane on these packs, picked him up straight away. I thought that the Helios Pro playstyle was really good for Whippet, but she's picked up Helios 2 great. So is Cam, but he's just come straight from Nexus. That's how he kind of already played. I think it was very interesting watching Packing at Helios 2 because he was solid, but then I went and versed him on Pro like a few weeks later, and I'm like, okay, there's a very big disparity here. So he is much better on Pro than he is on 2. So he's like they're strong, like a very strong player on Pro. I'm not sure if he was that on 2. So it'll be interesting to see if that H2 not working for his playstyle and just won't improve, or it's just him being new to the packs, which is why it was weak to begin with. So I'm very keen to see how that goes in Nats.
I kind of highlighted this in the Prenats 3 review stream, but I was getting pretty comfortable on the back of the V in red, but Pat King went like 4-0 against me, just lunging me out from the back door.
Interesting.
So he's that was pretty much the only time I ever saw Pat King. So
Yeah.
from my perspective, my small perspective, he's like god tier, better than Run. 4-0. And yeah, I think I also played these guys a couple times, refed them a couple times, and they were very good out of blue, and they made very good advantage. They took advantage of the push from blue to green, but they were also very disciplined on crunching home whenever people were attacking. So they weren't dropping many bases. The push from blue to green is pretty damn strong. So they were getting, Kempster was getting bases like that. Yeah, no, I think I would have had these teams higher, but I put Adrenaline and Anomaly both above them in my predictions. So I was back in the Adelaide boys. If Anomaly and Adrenaline weren't a thing, then this team would have been 15th or 14th as well. Yeah.
This isn't a team that's similar to what we saw in Bendigo, is it? It's there's definitely some shared elements, right?
I think it's only Campster and Whippet on that Outlaws
Interesting.
team, because they lost, obviously
Okay.
they lost Dark Passion, they lost Griffo, and then
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
remember
true.
who the other one or two players.
Yeah, it's quite different. Yeah, that's fair.
We got anything we'd like to talk about with the Albury Outlaws before we move on to 13th?
I don't think so.
No, happy days. Well, yeah, best of luck to Albury Outlaws. I'm sure you'll Whippet will, take Moldy Soul once again in brawling and stuff, and Pat King will continue to 100% success rate lunge me out of bases as well. Moving on. 13th place, we have our Majestic 5. Look at the stats for these guys. Crazy. So this is our visiting international team. It's a full Swedish team. On the team we have Moomin, Bambi, Jaehong, Noob, Buckshot, and then Invalid from the US is joining them as well. So Invalid has played 2017 and 2019 nuts. So he's got some stats there. I had them predicted 15th, Runt 16th, Moldy 14th, Community 13th, which gave them a final prediction of 13th place. Run, all you, mate.
I don't know how. I feel like a dick. I've got them down at 16th. No, I am so
hell,
excited
Run?
to see these guys play. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of versing these guys in their home arena. They're insane. Yeah, these guys are so much fun to verse. They play so differently to us. It's actually insane. All the gun holes completely different. They play like screen out, but like crazy flips with just nothing the same as Arsenal. It's such a different play style. And I'm very interested to see how that adapts. I do know. So Moomin plays everywhere. Very good player. But Bambi is the one that kind of people don't know about, but he's just a legend of the game back in Sweden and Europe. He was amazing. He was a very mobile player, great at dodging, like drop shots, all that stuff. Very mobile, but like he's quite old now, and he still moves amazing from the last time I saw him. But yeah, the best thing I noticed with his game from what I saw was his mastery of the one shot a second. So he was one of the very, very few players that you fire that shot and he dashes a whole panel or two panels in that 1 second gap. Like he has the shot and instantly goes, which it takes so much training to be able to do that on one shot a second. Barely anyone can even do it on one shot every 2 seconds. So to be able to do that on one shot a second, that's why Bambi is such a legend on one shot a second, I think. So I think he'll still be great at 2 shots a second, but I'm not sure if he'll be as legend. Yeah, he might come off as a hype to people, but I think it may be because he's so good at one shot that I'm not sure if it'll translate as well, and he's also getting a bit older. So I promise you guys, when we saw him back at home on his settings, he absolutely railed us.
If you
Then
could
apart,
compare Bambi to a player from ZLTAC, who would it be?
um, myself. Twinkles, one of something like that. Just skits movement, but very methodical with it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, gives
he's
me
better than us. Don't get me wrong, but that style of movement is just very quick. But
fantastic. Well,
yeah,
I think something everyone is kind of excited to see and curious about is how this team is going to play as a team in our format.
mm.
Have you got any insights that you have for the Majestic Five in regards to that?
From what I understand, these aren't normally a team. It's kind of like who from Sweden was willing to go. It's not so much we are Faderkin, let's send our Faderkin team that's very proven. So these guys are going to be a new team together on a new format, on a new system. I know they have some H2s scattered around Europe, but I don't think they play it much. I could be wrong. I'd love to.
I did ask Moomin. I think he said only he has had any H2 experience, and that was at the US Nationals that he went to.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so sounds like pretty new system to them too then. So yeah, it's going to be completely different for these guys. They're used to a very fast paced game, which Australians, that doesn't make sense because we think 2 shots a second is faster. 1 shot a second is faster. They play also 6 second DX and 10-minute games. So everything about their format is faster. So they're going to feel like they're just grinded to a halt on our format, which will probably hurt them a fair bit. It definitely hurt us when we went over there trying to switch the playstyle. We got absolutely railed. So that's why I have them quite low, is because I know that adjusting format is very rough. So yeah, very, very excited to see these guys play though. Noobs, when I saw him, he was brand new, or a very new player. But that was also like 4 years ago, so he might be amazing now. I wouldn't be surprised. Jae Hong was quite a solid player when I was there, and Buckshot. I feel really bad, but I can't really remember too much about them. But yeah, definitely solid players.
Apparently, Buckshot and Invalid have also played Helios too, so they're not as fresh as some teams are going to be going into this. So,
Yeah, okay.
but they
Interesting.
also have all the like adjusting format and stuff like you were saying to do. Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about Majestic 5 before we move on?
Yeah, I just saw in the chat VDark's called Moomin to win LOR. A big call, but I would believe it. Moomin is a excellent LOR player. So look out for him. You can watch him play the grand finals 2017 if you want some tips in beating him. Otherwise, I'm just I'm really keen to see how they play. I think Sweden mostly play Nexus, so the play style, at least of the kind of the timing meta, should still work in their favor a little bit. But it was so hard to predict this team because like they could be higher, but they could also be 10 places lower, even with the skill of the mythical Bambi that I've heard so much about but never ever seen in
I mean,
person.
realistically, the international team is always going to be the hardest to place, right? So, yeah, we could see these guys higher potentially if they really gravitate to stuff, or lower as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah, do we have anything else we'd like to add about Majestic 5 before we move on?
Yeah, I think some of where I placed them at least was based on how Blue Eagles went, because that's the closest analog we've got. But even that is still a very, very rough analog. So that's why I hope they do very well. But that's why I put them where I did, essentially.
Yeah. No worries. Well, yeah, best of luck to the Majestic 5. Very much looking forward to meeting some of our brethren from over yonder.
Yes, we get to verse them in Elim. That's going to be amazing.
That'll be cool. That'll be really exciting to see, actually. Do we know the Swedish guys playing on a triples team to get like
They
two
better
triples
be.
teams together?
I hope so, right? I'd be surprised
Yeah,
if
I'm
they
not
weren't.
sure. Yeah.
That'd be really cool. Yeah. Look out for these guys in a limb. Alrighty. Moving on. 12th place. Is it still really choppy? Yeah, I see it. Actually,
Yeah.
I saw it on my thing. It's really horrible. Awesome. Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. All right. 12th place, we have the Dragons. On the team, we have Gustus, Shifter, Dragon, Garn, VG Master, and Finn. So it's a VG Master, Garn, Dragon, and Gustus were on the team in Bendigo. They've since picked up Shifter, who's moved from Darwin Dingoes, and she moved to Canberra. and then Finn they picked up from the Ghost Bears team that also played Bendigo Nuts. I had them in 12th. Runt had them 11th. Moldy had them 11th. Community had them 12th, which gave them a final one of 12th. Now, gentlemen, who did we have written to talk about these guys? Was it me? Or was it someone else?
I think it's Run.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, it is Run. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We go again. I keep on seeing these guys everywhere, but they really like bases, and I think that helps them so much. Because I think the meta for ZLTAC has been very defensive heavy over the past few years. And I think what we saw in Hobart is a lot of teams that played that very defensive style, they just kind of forgot to get bases and they just defended themselves into third so much. Like most games were just the team that decided, hey, I like bases. They just won because they were attacking both bases, and other teams would like try to like, yeah, exactly. Other teams would like try to go, oh, we'll maybe test the waters there, and then they're always like, oh crap, we're behind on bases too late. Whereas I think it's a huge strength to just know, hey, bases are going to get got in Hobart. We might want to be the ones that get the bases to kick off the game, and Dragons are kind of that team to do that. And they'll just throw numbers at a base, and that just worked. Like that, the meta in Hobart is kind of moving towards a 3-man attack, which if Canberra embraces, numbers are their thing. We played their maze, and it makes a lot of sense why their strategy is always throw numbers at the situation, because it's not a 2-man attack maze, which means it might actually translate pretty decently to Hobart with just a lot of people rocking up at your base when they want it.
Unless you're running twinkles, it's not a 2-man attack nice.
Man. Yeah, we thought we were setting the meta, but nobody followed us. So rude. Anyway, but yes, defense will still be these guys' weak point. It always is. They are not a team that they don't really. Yeah, they're like holding a panel seems weaker than most other teams. It's not really a focus for them. It always seems, and they never have that anchor that's ready to just hold an anchor. Their outside defenders are always trying to brawl in the open, and that always just ends up leaking bases. So I think they're going to do well in Ascensions because Ascensions it often ends up being either very locked down or very blowout, and whenever it's blowout, Canberra always do way better than anyone expects them to. So I think that's why I have them quite high. Is they're just going to roll some teams that are trying to play too slow by just playing fast. VG, starting to think is a bit of a coin flip player. He might get at an average score of 16k or he might get an average score of 9. Both still impressive, but he has the potential to be one of the top scoring players at Nationals. So I'm not sure if we'll see that. Based on pre-nuts, we might not, but very, very strong player if he's allowed to be.
I think Shifter kind of alluded to the kind of strategy they were trying in Pre-Nats 3 didn't allow VG Master to really spread his wings and get the kind of do the things we would normally expect. So yeah, maybe, they tried it out, they decided they don't like it, or they've made some tweaks and then he's going to come back strong. But it's only a matter of time.
Other thing is they've got Finn now, and Finn is, I believe, VG's attacking partner. Very strong attacker, runs around a lot. Persistent for those bases. We'll probably stay there too long to get those bases, but he'll get those bases.
We should get him.
Yeah. So I think I'm hoping they go back to that strategy of VJ and Finn get your bases, and we're gonna high scoring game, and they'll do well.
I think I'd just like to touch on the them being able to open up games. So Aftershock at Pre-Nats 3 actually had a game against Dragons, and we were like, all right, these guys are gonna dump. We're going to be ready for it and whatever. They ended up not dumping. They opened up with a 3-man attack and they left a couple at home. So we sent our people there straight away. And then Shifter was like, not even really hiding in the base. I think she was kind of hiding. She was in a weird spot. And then, one of us has put 2 shots on the base and then instantly got denied. And then they went and got like 4 bases in the first 2 minutes. So that was the start of our game against the Dragons. And that was like, awesome. We ended up just managing to squeak that one back, but we had to kind of play into that game, and we had to go super aggressive and stuff. So, just on that point, Dragons definitely have the ability to just open up a game and start off with a bunch of bases and a denial whilst you have not much yourself. So, we'll see how they go. Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about the Dragons?
Yeah, it's tough for me because I didn't get to play them a lot at pre-nats, and this team is quite different from like the Dragons of old that the Cobras are used to playing. Um, I think I definitely echo everything Runt and you were saying about like the heavy attack. And my thought with any Canberra team, but especially the Dragons, is like, can they hold in the urge to dump? Like, can they resist the dump? Because I honestly feel like the Dragons have thrown away games with the dump, even by opening with the dump. 2019, which I think had three of these players, they actually beat us in a couple of games by opening with the dump and push us down into the bottom track, and we just got sick of it and dumped on top of them to counter it. But like, I feel like it's I don't know. Yeah, work if they can keep their defense relatively solid and not drop it and like do 3-man attacks, but maybe not 100% of the time. I think the attacking power is strong enough that they could easily make the position they predicted or higher. Gus obviously is an absolute class player. He would be my standout player, right? His experience and his results speak for
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
Runt, your pick be for our stand-up player for the Dragons before we move on?
Um, I still think it's VG. His ability to just push other people through bases, very impressive. Like you can see scores, people know scores are things, but that's one of the things you actually see in game that not many people are aware of. The fact that he is very good at clearing out defenders and pushing his team through. So I think that's a very good skill to have that isn't talked about much, but VG definitely has it.
Well, yeah, I think I'd have to echo both of you guys. Gus and VG Master definitely the big dogs in the yard. But you know, yeah, best of luck to the Dragons, and we'll see if you can pull it together and climb a few spots, huh? That'd be cool. That'd be nice. All right, moving on to our 11th place team. Choppy transition. Lovely. Storm. So on Storm we have Cyrex, Moss, Big Red, Shock, Fireburn, and Bones. So the same roster as Prenat 3, and pretty much the same roster as Bendigo Nats, except they've dropped. Kit Kat's no longer on the team, and Bones is a Queensland rookie that's joined them. So I had them 11th, Runt had them 12th, Moldy had them 9th, Community had them 8th, final 11th. Who's talking about Storm? Was it me?
It is you.
Yeah.
Cool. So funnily enough, I didn't actually verse this team much at Brain Has 3. I think I only versed them once. But I did verse them a lot in Bendigo. And it is pretty much the same roster. So I think I can kind of draw upon that to talk about these guys. So something I would like to point out with the Storm is that they are a very, very disciplined team. They're not going to be the team that is like leaking bases. They're not going to be the team making a drastic decision. Well, they'll make decisions in the game, but they won't make like a flustered one. You know what I mean? They make good decisions. Their setups are always very strong and disciplined. They won't leak bases. I think something we saw with them at Prenats 3 was they were struggling to really get bases themselves. I think one of the things we kind of pointed out in the review stream is that Firebirds, as one of the stronger attacking players on this team, his stats are actually like shockingly low for Prenats 3, which, you know, if he's in the chat, maybe you can talk a bit about that. But I think something we were kind of saying is I believe Shock had really strong stats for Prenat 3 from memory. But everyone else in the team, like their stats were like they were okay, but there was nothing crazy going on. So I think just to kind of echo what we were saying in the review stream, if they can really, like I said, like the discipline, good setups, won't leak bases, but I think they need to. I don't think they kind of figured out how to get bases in this arena, which, as Runt was kind of alluding to, a lot of the time people were only getting bases off the back of a 3-man attack or 3-person attack. It was really hard to crack into the bases with 2 or less, especially when everyone is just doing heavy defenses, right? But yeah, I don't know. In terms of standout players, I think obviously Shock had a really strong pre-nets 3. His stats were by far the best on the team. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna back my boy Firebird. I think he's a good dude, he's a smart dude. I'm sure he's learnt a lot from his experience at pre-nets 3, and I'm really hoping to see kind of a more of what we would expect from him as a really fast, long, lanky, athletic pack on pack player. Yeah, don't let me down is what I'm saying, bro. Or I'll be severely disappointed. Anyway, Runt and Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about the Storm guys?
I think if you just picture, solid laser tag team, this is just that team in a nutshell. They are just, all their players will do their job, solid. They won't make many dumb mistakes, but they're also not the team that's likely to open the game. They're just gonna kind of try to ride along with the other teams most of the time, is what seems to happen in their games. Standout player is definitely Shock. He's the one that we've seen has that ability to really go off and carry a game, which is really good for this team. So that was getting them a lot of wins at pre-nats from what we saw. I think was Shock kind of being let off that leash. But yeah, these guys are just very solid. I think they were leaving Bones in the base a lot. And that left a very critical weak spot because Bones is still very fresh. And I'm not sure if he's an anchor player back home, but it definitely felt like he was thrust into a position where he didn't seem comfortable yet. That could easily change at Nats, but that was kind of the weak spot you're not used to Storm having. And I think if that's patched up through experience or changing positions around, I'm not sure, then we'll see the Storm team kind of be pushing for that top 10 where we kind of see them every year. I think Bendigo, they pushed a fair bit higher than that, but they're always on that cusp of mid and top tier, which is where I think they'll be again.
Yeah, I believe Bendigo, they came 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, damn.
I thought it was 7th.
It might be 7th.
Might be 7.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so clearly they went well at Bendigo then.
Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about Storm? Obviously, you haven't really seen much of this team. I mean, you might have seen them a bit at Pre-Nats 3, but you haven't been at Nats for a bit, so.
We played them at Pre-3. Obviously, I know Cyrex, Bread, and Firebird from way back. They're a super solid, dependable team. I think the reason I probably have them higher, as well as being on the back of a very strong tournament last year for them, is kind of the Queensland factor, which often gets forgotten. And that's just, I think, over the course of a 2-week tournament, just the sheer amount of training and playing against so many top tier players that Queensland get to do. I think just their fundamentals will out after a couple of weeks. In the chat, it was 6th they came. Yeah, so I think we're likely to see a little bit of a drop from that. Cobras are back. I expect that we would beat them, but you never know. But I don't see them falling as far, just simply because they're solid, dependable Queensland players who drill their fundamentals week after week against the best players in the country. So, yeah.
I think when I was talking to my team Aftershock about what the final predictions were, because gave them the inside scoop. And when I said that Storm was predicted in 11th, Fuggan in particular, I remember was super what? How did they predict 11th? They came 6th last year.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah. So I think I was going to have them higher as well, but I think it just kind of speaks to the quality of the top tier at this tournament.
Yes.
Ron, you and I were talking about this a few months ago, about how this might be one of the most stacked, especially in the top end, one of the most stacked tournaments we've ever had. It's crazy. Obviously, we've had the rise of the Adelaide teams. We've got 2 teams up there that haven't been up there much. Cobras are making a return after their hiatus since 2019. Vikings are definitely very convincingly up there, and then there's just all these Queensland teams as well. And then also of note, spoilers, but teams like Rampage that have been coming to get every single comp, training super hard, and I think we're starting to see the results of that. So I think Storm being in 11th is yeah, I think it kind of just speaks to how stacked this tournament is going to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when trying to make predictions, there was a very clear trend in the top 11 or 12 teams, and I think it's very clear this competition from trying to predict, like based on paper, that there's just a harsh line between that top and that mid tier. And I think Storm is definitely evident of we're past that harsh line. Uh, we're really at the phase where I feel like Outlaws, for example, they 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 wouldn't be in place in top 10, but whereas Storm, for example, they could easily be fifth. Like we're in the stage now where we are in that top block, and that top block everyone can shuffle around. So yeah, these are where the predictions get a lot harder, I think, and we're going to see a lot more spread from our predictions.
So, anything else to add about Storm before we move on? Excellent. Well, yeah, best of luck to Storm. Predicted probably a lot lower than you might have thought you should be, but just an opportunity for you guys to prove us all wrong, and I'm here for it. Can't wait. See you then. 10th place team. We're in the top 10. Rampage. Speaking of the Devils, on the team we have Spider, Zam, Sadlamp, Polchrome, Princess, and Wildcard. I had them in 9th. Run had them in 8th. Moldy had them in 10th. Community had them in 10th. Final prediction, 10th place. Who's talking about Rampage? I forget.
Runters.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm already intrigued by the spread. I was expecting Rampage to be predicted a lot higher, because me putting them in 8th, I thought I put them low. So yeah, because
The chat's
I
calling
guess
the golden game for them. Yeah.
yeah, I guess they kind of choked in their ascension run at Prenats 3, but to me they felt way stronger than Storm at Prenats. Obviously Rampage had more experience, but yeah, that's kind of my thought process. These guys are very strong. I mean, Spider can take a team of very new player, like a lot of new players, and get to 6th. So with a team that he's been training with for years at this point, these guys have the potential to go absolutely insane in finals, and they can get 5th or whatever. But they could also just bomb out like they did at Prenup. So this is my coin flip team, as it always is. Who knows? But I think they'll do better than 10th easily. Because at this point they're not even a new team. Like they're a team that's played together quite a while. Most of them were already playing together. They're a team of almost all quite experienced players. Like Spider, Zam, and Princess all been playing a heap. Sadlamp, I'm surprised has only been to 2 base dump comps, but I feel like he hits every pre-nuts. So he feels like he's been playing a long time. Polchrome's relatively new, but hitting up every single comp ever, flying around the country to train with people. And Wildcard's been around for a while now too, and I think we saw last pre-nuts is coming into its stride, and starting to open up more and gel with more, fill his role more and with the rest of the team. So yeah, I think these guys will be quite strong. The structure they had at Red, for example, amazing. They just walked. They literally set up a 5-man line down from red to green, and they just cycled their green bases. Like they do stuff like that, which other teams aren't really thinking of doing, but they played the maze well. They know how the maze functions, and yeah, I think they're going to do a lot better than 10th.
I think in the when I did the community submissions for predictions, I included a little dark horse tab, which I totally forgot about, and I've remembered it now. But Rampage was one of the team names that got dropped as the dark horse pick of the tournament. They were up there with I think Cobras were put as a dark horse team as well, which I think is funny. Yeah, Rampage was probably one of the more common teams that people nominate as their dark horse. So it kind of speaks to what you were just saying as well, Run. What would you say going into this tournament is a potential area of weakness for this team, or something they might struggle with?
I think they're one of the very guilty teams of defending themselves into the third, and they know it. They love that. Yeah, we're just gonna defend all game, and oh, we lost. That's crazy. Um, like putting Spider in last line, for example. Their issue was already defending themselves into third, and that's only going to help do with that. So I think at nationals when they actually play Spider out in the wild, and they I think I was talking to some of them when they actually go for their bases that they know they can get. Like I think Polchrome's like one of their lead attackers with Zam, and then Spider just grabs his bases. That's an easy 6 bases, and this team's set. So that's their strength, but their weakness, defending themselves into third, trying to do crazy stuff, playing players where they're not used to playing, because this team is very regimented. They're like, you play this position and you play it for the rest of your life. So when players are put in different positions, they tend to freak out a bit. So, but yeah, when they play to their strength, very very strong.
Yeah, Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about Rampage? Strengths, weaknesses, who your
Yeah,
standout player is?
I mean, well, I think the Spider's always the obvious standout, isn't he? Look at that GRC. That's disgusting. Yeah, I'm a really big fan of this team, just like personally. So don't come at me, Spider, if you're a salty boy after this stream. Yeah, I think the Dark Horse tag is fair for this team. I think if they play the right bases or like come up with the right strategy, they could definitely do better than the prediction, and maybe they will do better than the prediction. But I feel like this team has a over reliance on their AAA player in Spider, and I feel like that can carry you through a lot of things, but it doesn't always carry you through a whole 2 week competition. And well, I think the rest of their players are pretty solid. I think at the bottom end of their team, there's definitely some weakness on pack, and I think they'll be exploited come Cascade 2, Cascade 3 in finals. And that's why I think they potentially won't go as high as they might if they come up with a cheesy strat like at Darwin Nats, where Spider was able to pull a team up to 6th place by being gifted blue over and over and over again. So barring anything crazy, I think they'll do well, but I think they have a limit. Yeah.
I think just speaking on the point of weaker pack on pack skills, so I think I would argue that's actually almost one of the strengths they have is, or at least specifically their timing. I always talk, we'll have after a day of playing or whatever, maybe we verse Rampage a couple times, and then something that we'll all say afterwards is like, geez, like all the Rampage guys just had like insane timing.
Is that on
Yeah.
pro or 2?
That was on, I mean, on both,
Okay, interesting.
honestly. But that being said, I definitely remember. I definitely remember times where like you'll verse them in one game and then they feel like they're like super on top of it and their pack on packs are really strong and their timing's insane. And then you might verse them another time and they almost feel like completely different players.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's usually towards the end of the tournament, which I feel could just be like the pressure of getting to the pointy end, maybe getting to them. I think a weakness I'd identify for this team is as a team that never really gets to play team games outside of going to tournaments. I feel like in terms of, as we've kind of highlighted, developing like strategies for specific bases and stuff, and like an opening strategy, very good. As we said, like Spider was able to make a massive climb in Darwin with his team by coming up with one of these strategies. But I feel like their fundamental macro strategy isn't there compared to a lot of the other top teams here. And I think I would attribute a lot of that to just not being able to play any team games in training. Yeah, I think that's just something I would highlight. But Runt, who's your standout player for this team?
Zam just rolls me every single time, and he always gets confused when I say him. But his pack on pack, like his phaser control is insane. His timing's good and his awareness is very good. So I always say Zam. Like Spider's obviously like the strongest player, but Zam is always the one that nobody realizes is actually insane and cracked with all the actual skill stuff. So yeah, I like the Zam pick.
Yeah, I think my pick, just to spice it up, is Polchrome. was doing really well at Prenets 3, and I specifically remember fucking just like venting to the team after our Rampage games. He was like, dude, I could not shoot this guy out of the blue sandwich, like, to save his damn life. So kudos to Polchrome, who'll be my pick for a stand-up player. Do you have anything we'd like to add about this team before we move on?
Players may definitely be interested to know that Sadlip and Polcram got to Tasmania 3 weeks early and have been training with us. So that is definitely going to help them a lot.
Crazy. I wish I had the money for that. That's crazy.
Unemployed life, eh, Polcram?
Alrighty. Well, yeah. Best of luck to Rampage. Let's see if going to what going to all the pre-nuts and 3 extra weeks of training. See if it pays off, huh? Moving on. 9th place team, Hobart Archangels. On the team, easy points: Mantis, Jellyhawk, Sega, Shurikitty, and Villain. I had them in 10th. Run had them in 9th. Moldy had them in 12th. Committee had them in 11th, which gave them a final prediction of 9th place. Moldy, I believe you said you were happy to take it away with Hobart Archangels. So tell me a bit about strengths, weaknesses, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this was a hard team to predict because they've had some really nice results at pre-nets, and clearly Runt is backing them to crack the top 10, and I haven't. And that's because I think it's just the home team factor. They get a lot of hype for performing at pre-nets, but we have seen like severe drop-offs in performance between pre-nets 3 and ZLTAC. Having said that, they're still a really solid team and they're super drilled in this maze. I think that's probably their biggest strength, is just purely apart from being all good players with good timing, with good experience on these packs. Like if they want to lock down a base with a 4 or 5 man defense, like you will not take it unless you send 3 or 4. They're like super solid. Yeah, my pick for this, like my player of the team for me is Jellyhawk. He's an absolutely insane last line. I could see him being on Vikings. He's got the skill for it now. I think he could be later on. I'm Team Jelly all the way. Yeah, weaknesses, I think they just don't have the experience that they need in the long run to crack top 10 over the course of a tournament. I think as the days go by, players that have just had far more years than them will be able to exploit their inexperience. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, I just want to highlight one awesome play that I saw them pull at pre-nets. I think they knew Spartans were coming out of red and would probably hit their base immediately, so they just dumped out of green and ran off to blue. But Easy Points stayed in one of the little pockets on the side of green. Madcans runs in, 2 shots into the base, and Easy Points steps out of the pocket, denies them the back, and runs away. I love seeing cheesy crap like that. So credit to them. Yeah.
Dude, I get caught by that all the time, and it doesn't get any less frustrating. It's a bad feeling.
Well, you actually also saw most of these guys play in
did.
New Zealand. So how did you think they played in a maze where they didn't have that home side advantage?
True. They did play well. It's really hard to judge against kind of the mixed teams that it invites versus a team of players who play together at training all the time, whereas a lot of their opponents don't play together. But how many of these were on your team run? Just Jelly, Shurikitty?
Yes.
Yeah, and they pulled out the win, and the rest of them, apart from Villain, who wasn't there, pulled a 4th in that comp as well. So like I said, they're impressive players. I think that they all have good pack skills, good timing, for the most part, good communications, and if they don't lose their heads, they will do well. I'm not convinced based on their pre-nets results that they're going to crack top 10, but I really, really hope that they do.
Oh yeah, and that's valid. Like, probably need to say it again, but this is a team of all pretty much like 1st and 2nd year players. Yeah, we actually have the stats. Brilliant. Pretty much all 2nd year players. So they're not an experienced team. Their captain only has 2 nationals under his belt. So there's nobody really to lean on in going, we're in finals. What do we do? What do we do differently? So they are a very inexperienced team, but going into nationals for the first time since pre-nets 1, they're looking good. Every pre-nets, I'm like, guys. I'm really hoping for the best, but you're not showing it. They're looking good again. So I think that's why I actually I have them quite high, is because they've done very well going into a comp as a shit show. So them going into a comp looking good, I think they're gonna do great. But yes, it is that thing of we're home teams and everyone else is learning faster than us, so everyone is catching up at a faster rate than we're learning. So our edge is gonna drop off, and that's why we've got them. They may well not make that top 10. But I think kind of if they play to their strengths, they're very, very good. So, and they're very good at high tier games, not great at low tier games because they're used to playing those high tier games. So that always throws them. But I hope they get used to stomping some lower tier teams over the course of nationals, and then actually being able to play those high tier games that they're much better at.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think a weakness that I think I would like to highlight, something that I've seen previously for prenuts mainly, is obviously they favor a more like a heavier defense. Very, very rich field points. Mantis is always like up there, getting like crazy tag ratios and really big scores just off the pack. Obviously, we've kind of hyped up and gone on about Jellyhawk. Insane last line in these bases on H2. So getting their base isn't an easy task. But I think where we'll see this team fail is where like when bases start to devolve into chaos, and maybe when even less that, just more when the other teams start kind of maybe Archangels on no bases, and then the other team start exchanging on each other, or maybe they are able to get one Archangel's base and they start like just falling behind in that base race. I see this team kind of struggling to really be able to equalize and pull back. But yeah, that's about all I have to say. I think, yeah, I'll jump on the Jellyhawk bandwagon as well. At Prenuts he had a tag ratio of 1.4. This is Prenuts 3 as a last line, which is one of the higher tag ratios of the comp from memory. So yeah, no, I'm really excited to see. Prenuts one thing, 2 another thing, Prenuts 3 another thing, nationals, whole new story. I suspect this team will start off really strong, as you always kind of do with home teams. But let's see if they can make the adjustments and adjust to what everyone else is doing, I guess, over the course of a tournament. Anything else we'd like to add about Archangels before we move on? No worries. Well, yeah, best of luck to the Archangels. And yeah, looking forward to hearing you guys do your pre-game chant from inside the foyer room. Very groovy. Moving on. 8th place, we have the One Up Boys. We've got Gunner, Guinea, Yeah, Low Lance, and then pickups, Celery and Karachi. I had them in 8th, Runt had them in 10th, Moldy had them in 5th. Big one. Community had them in 7th, and which gave him a final prediction of 8th. Moldy, I believe you said you wanted to talk about the One Up Boys.
Yeah, I think mostly just because this is one of the biggest like spreads in prediction that we've had between 5 places between me and Runt's prediction. And I'm honestly kind of surprised that they're predicted as low as they are. They are a hard team to predict though, because they traditionally have been a very chaotic team in and out of the maze. Their strategies are interesting at times, but like they've got multiple trophy winners on that team. They've come second in Albury with many of the same players, and they've got 2 new pickups for the team in Celery and Crouchy, who are both just playing insanely well at the moment on pack skills, either brawling or farming, base cracking. So when you look at that team, it's really hard to pick out like weaknesses in pack skill, certainly. Really good stats across the board, so much experience. And for me, it's can they come up with a cohesive strategy and not lose their minds? at the hard end of the comp, and if they can keep it together, they scare me, and I think I'm surprised they don't scare the other top teams. Yeah.
I wanted them to scare us, and going into pre-nuts 3, I'm like, yeah, these guys have a great shot at finals. They're gonna be like 4th, and then they weren't. They were nowhere near it, and it made me sad because what up for trying to play standard laser tag, and that's not what they do. So, like, if they just are true to one up and they just try and shoot stuff and they just get base hungry and they just let everyone abandon the defensive roles to shoot stuff, they do amazing. When they try and have a proper structure, they fall apart, which is so counterintuitive, but it's just so one up. Um, so yeah, I also think something noteworthy. I was talking to Celery. Is like, oh yeah, towards the end of pre-nuts, we actually tried putting one in the base, and it actually helped us a lot. We stopped dropping so many bases.
Crazy.
Like the last few games of the comp, they tried putting someone in. So I think that's my glaring weakness for the team, is that they don't have a last line. They don't have an anchor. So
That's the most one-up thing I've ever heard in my life, and he's new to one-up. Oh my
yeah.
God.
So like Hobart is carried by a good anchor. If you don't have one, and if you don't like that, they should have been building the anchor skills at pre-nuts, and none of these guys. I thought they were gonna make Celery or Crouchy the anchor, and then they didn't. But I think one of them is gonna need to be at nationals if they want to do well, because the others like to play in the open far more. So yeah, I think if they do that, they might do well. But I think it might be too late to completely. Well, not too late. Like we've still got a whole nationals, but I think they've shown their hand in what they're doing this year, which is we're being quite regimented and just being one up. I don't know, not being true to one up rather. But I think if they do play like they usually play and embrace that they don't have that anchor and play as if they don't have that anchor, they'll do well. So I'm keen to see how they go.
That's interesting. I love that. Who's going to be your stand-up player for the team, Moldy?
It is hard to pick. I'd actually be picking between the two new players, but I'm gonna have to go with Crouchy. Crouchy's a player who's been like on an upwards trend for a long time in laser tag skill. He's put the work in. People may not be aware that before the 2020 Worlds was cancelled in Malaysia, Crouchy was actually going to be attending on the Cobras team. So that's the level of esteem we hold him in terms of his laser tag skill. And I found him pretty impressive at pre-nats, so I'm keen to see how he goes at nats. Oh, I'm playing triples with him as well at ZLTAC. So he was my last-minute emergency triples partner when one of mine pulled out. So very lucky pickup for me. Very stoked.
Yeah, Runt, who's your stand-up player for the team?
Celery, if he's off his leash, if he's defending again, he'll get denials, but he's not where he's meant to be. Celery is I've seen it so many pre-nats. He's just off his leash and is just shooting stuff, and he top scores the entire competition by far. His pack on pack is one of the best of the competition. It's just nobody realizes because he's always on just random teams, and he doesn't play that way at nationals. So if he's actually allowed to play like he does at pre-nats at nationals, and he's just like, "Come on, boy, go get points," best player in the arena. So I back Celery.
That's some big Celery hype right there, Runt. God damn. Well, yeah, there you go, one up. There's your recipe for success. Another team that could climb as high as maybe making finals, or another team that could also drop as low as like 16th or something. We have seen that before. But best of luck to the one up boys. Very much looking forward to see how they go with their two new pickups over the course of a whole tournament, and actually using a last line as well. That'll be cool. Alrighty. Moving on to our 7th place team, we have Apex, the boys. Cool. So on the team, We have the same roster as 2022 Bendigo. Memeless, Marmaduke, Spack Attack, Benson, Bonfire, and Shakester. I had them in 6th. Runt had them in 7th. Moldy had them in 8th. Community had them in 9th. 6, 7, 8, 9. Gave them a final prediction of 7th place. Bendigo Nationals, they ended up finishing in 5th place. They were in that same last golden. They managed to get to the golden games, like golden game 3. Yeah, cool. Same roster. I guess talk a bit about their strength. This team's always been one of the strongest, just pack on pack, like sheer talent teams. They're very, very, very good at shooting people. Memeless and Marmaduke, I would back them to be one of the best, probably the top 5 for me, top 5 attacking pairs in Australia at Nats. They're really damn good. They're brothers. They've got this crazy synergy. They just look. They don't even have to look at each other. They just read each other's minds. There's a door that they need to be lunged by a right-hander. You've got Caleb Blitzen in, really athletic dude, done. And then you've got a door that needs to be lunged by a left-hander. You got Marmaduke, who's decided to grow like a million feet tall, left-hander lunge, done, easy. So, yeah, I think one of the big questions for this team, and I think undoubtedly why they were predicted 7th after coming 5th last year, is one, just again speaking to how stacked the top end is. Teams like the Cobras coming back, but 2, they haven't got, none of their players have been to any of the pre-nats. None of their players have ever played the Hobart Arena. None of their players have ever played Helios 2. So one of the big questions for the Apex boys is, are they going to be able to adjust to the system? And I don't even really know the answer to that. I think off of instinct, I would say Memeless and Marmaduke are going to pick it up really quickly because we do play on Nexus at home. So the idea of just actually looking for phases as an attacker, like lunging in, isn't a foreign concept. You just don't expect to hit it very often on Nexus. And then just the idea of, not exposing your phaser too much. There is an element of phaser discipline on Nexus, just again, not to the extent of H2. I've got faith in them that they'll pick on the packs. But it might just take them, the round robin, maybe even Cascade 1 to really get super used to it. Because it is crazy. For the people that haven't played H2, how easy to get shot on the phaser, like down the barrel specifically, is crazy. And then I guess, I don't know. I don't want to say too much more about them. So I'm just gonna say my stand-up player for the team is going to be Memeless. Yeah, he's leading the team, led the team last year, did a fantastic job. I think he's one of the best players. I think he's really underrated as well. And he's just got a really good head on his shoulders. He's good at trying to keep the Apex boys in line. Yeah, really good attitude. Really smart as well, and just yeah. Even though Apex hasn't been able to get much of their full roster at training because Spack Attack's often away working and Benson's often busy as well. At the very least, Memeless, Marmaduke, Shaky, and Robin have been there pretty much every week. So yeah, they've been training hard, and I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of their labor. You guys got anything you'd like to add about the Apex boys?
Exile said it in chat, but yeah, it was definitely something I already had in my mind because these guys kind of played Bendigo the way that a lot of teams play Hobart, which is very much that sort of pull right back, pack point, and then hit them with a 3-man or a very fast 2-man attack, and build a wall down one side of one wing. So these guys are gonna, man, looking at these guys, H2 is gonna suit them perfectly. The arena mobility gonna suit them perfectly. The arena feel and the meta gonna suit them perfectly. The fact that they don't train, probably an issue, but I think these guys are still young enough to pick stuff up very quickly. So I put them in 7th, which feels insane based on them not playing any pre-nuts and stuff, but now I think even that might be too low because it's just it all lines up too nicely for them. I mean, you didn't even mention Bonfire, and he was one of the top players for ages, right? Like, how's he going?
He's doing really good. He's playing pretty much every week. I
Oh,
think
interesting.
they're doing something interesting with Bonfire, where instead of him being kind of like leading the charge in terms of pack and bases and
Mm,
kind of putting the team on his shoulders, I think the responsibility is just being spread throughout the team a bit more, and Bonfire's playing a bit more of a I guess a mid kind of role.
yeah,
So yeah, he's been really dominant in trainings, admittedly. Um, Especially our arena is quite small, and Nexus, um, yeah, he's got a very aggressive play style. So when you add like the trigger lockout of Nexus and then a small arena, it can sometimes feel like this guy's got control of the entire arena
mm,
sometimes. So yeah, I think Beefy actually always highlights that he reckons Bonfire is one of the best at picking targets when he's field pointing, like not being just like I see like a shoot. He's very specific about like when he shoots people and why. And with that being the role he kind of plays on the team and how this arena kind of plays, I think yeah, Bonfire is also going to he's going to be causing trouble for people for sure.
yeah. Who's their last line? Now I'm saying it. Stupid chat.
I'm pretty sure it'll be shaky, so left-hander.
Interesting. Okay, so he'll be played every game then.
I would expect him to be played most games. Benson hasn't been training very much. Neither is Spack, but I think traditionally Benson does sit more than the rest of this team does, like at every single nationals that he plays. Definitely a,
Yeah,
a big team player, but he can definitely kind of like slot into, you know, any of the defensive roles quite easily.
interesting. Spack still captain?
No. Memeless has been so I mean Spack does some of like the admin stuff, but Memeless has been the captain, in-game lead attacker since this year and last year. Yeah.
Okay, okay, cool. Interesting.
I think also, yeah, as Zeph kind of pointed out, when Spack is in, he will be the last line for sure.
Okay, yeah. That sounds more like
Yeah, I think it'll be
Yeah.
right-hander, left-hander. They'll figure
mm,
out where they like to put people. But Shaky in training has been their last line.
okay.
I forget because Spack also hasn't been able to train much because he's been away, like always in another state working. But yeah, Spack has always played the last line position for this team, pretty much.
Yep. No, that's strong. And Marmaduke, yeah, slept on. Nobody seems to know who he is, but amazing. Just very quick, very aggressive, very good. So this team's gonna do great. I think they shouldn't, and it'll be insulting to the teams that have put in so much work for these young guys to just rock up and rail, but they're going to. They're 100% going to.
Yeah, Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about the Apex boys before we move on?
Not much. I've played against a lot of these players. Never Marmaduke, I think, but if he's
Marmaduke is
related to...
Stormboy. So
Okay,
Zach
so
Waller, like Caleb's
yeah,
brother.
Caleb, yeah, if he's Caleb's brother and plays like Caleb, Caleb's a very good player. So yeah, the attacking strength of this team is intimidating, and yeah, it would be interesting to see if they could kind of surprise everyone on these rankings and come out with a dominant performance and establish themselves as a top team. That would be great. Based on the stats that we've seen, I don't think it's that likely, but yeah, I'm very keen to play against them.
Just to explain Marmaduke to everyone, he's literally memeless, but like a few inches taller, left-handed, and just a goofy dude. Anyway, best of luck to the Apex boys. Very much looking forward to seeing them. Yeah, they have some really dominant training sessions, so I'm looking forward to seeing all of that being being shared with everyone else at the comp. Cool. Moving on. Boing. Sixth place, Aftershock. Me. Represent. Boys. I got my hoodie on as well, my Aftershock hoodie on. So we have the same roster as 2022, but Dossie unfortunately is off traveling and stuff. So we have a 5-man roster, very scary. But on the team is Fuggin, Mikey, myself, Chutch, and Beefy. For the predictions, I had us in 3rd, spicy. Runt had us in 6th. Moldy had 6th. Community had 5th, which gave us a final prediction of 6th place. Yeah. Won't say too much. I did kind of assign my team to myself to talk about, but in hindsight, I don't want to say too much. But yeah, I don't know. We've been training a lot. We've been training hard. I think a big thing, a goal we set after Bendigo Nats, when we did the first few months of training, we've been trying to separate ourselves and we try and do mixed teams or just join other teams just to try and share and spread some of the experience and knowledge we have and share some wisdom and try and bring everyone else up. But as soon as we started training as our full team, one of the goals we set after Bendigo Nationals was we want every single training session we have to be as productive as possible. So we'll set a project that might just be a really quick one, like a week, might be a few weeks, might be as long as a month. We'll set a project of specific things, really specific things we want to work on, whether it be a strategy or just some general defensive setups or trialing people in different positions, whatever it is, but just being very specific and deliberate with our training. And we have stuck to that literally every week. I can't really think of a single training session we've had where we've come out of it and we've been yeah, that was crap. We didn't get anything out of that session. So just that. The fact that I think the Adelaide scene it was strong last year. It's just stronger this year. The level is definitely rising in Adelaide, and not just from the top teams, but everyone, rising tide lifts all ships. The quality of the training we get is better than ever. So I think also we were able to go with most of our roster to Pre-Nats 1 and 3. So we're not going to be going in blind on H2 and in the arena. All of those things combined, we're feeling pretty confident. We're the most confident we've ever been. And yeah, making a big push to make a statement and get an Adelaide team in the finals. We haven't been in there since 2015 with Adelaide Respawn. So
That's right.
that is right.
You guys
Yeah,
hated
forget.
being in finals at your home Nats. That's right.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Anyway, I think interestingly, so our scene is as big as it was going into 2017. We had, actually, I think it's bigger now. I'm pretty sure we have one more team than we did in 2017.
Yeah, you guys have 5 teams now, which is insanity.
Yeah, the difference between Adelaide 2017 and Adelaide 2023 is night and day. It's not even, nothing is the same. So yeah, we're looking to make a statement. All the Adelaide teams looking to make a big statement, and we're going to be trying to lead the charge in that. But yeah, I don't want to say anything more. But have you guys got any things you'd like to add? Some observations, some weaknesses you expect? Who's your stand-up player?
Yeah,
You
well,
already know, mate. You already know.
having only 5 players is interesting, given that one of your 5 is Beefy. And look, he's a multiple champion. He's a fantastic player, but he's older than the trees. And his stats from Pre-Nats 3 were pretty shocking for a player of his experience and caliber. I think he was 90th on the solo ladder or something. So.
Don't worry, we give him plenty of shit for that.
I'm looking for a great performance from you guys, but I think anything can happen when you have 5 players that could tank your Nats. I super respect you putting your team into 3rd in your prediction. You gotta love the confidence to do that.
See if it's misplaced or not soon enough, huh?
Yeah. I mean, your attack is this is an attacking maze, and your attack is very strong. The opening attack of you and Fuggin is very good. The kind of the big aggressive pushes, really good at diving base doors, really good phaser discipline, as you always say. yeah, standout player for me. I'm not gonna say you in spite of your GRC. I'm gonna say Fuggin. Like Fuggin's a player I remember from like his first ZLTAC in like 2015, where he was like 3 foot tall and squeaky, and to see like, the progression to the player he is now is really awesome. He's come a long way and he's very very good technically. Very good player. Yeah.
Run. You got something to say?
Well, I would have said Church in the lead up to PN3. I think it was interesting. She was very oppressive on her pre-nuts 1 team when she was just doing whatever she felt like, but it didn't feel like she had as much of a presence when she went back in Aftershock. I don't know if you can speak to that at all, but yeah. Do you know why that is?
I think it was just struggling to. We're talking about you, Church. Talking about you. She's right there. I gotta be careful what I say. No, I think just struggled to. I think there's something to be said about you. Were kind of saying it before about celery. When you just like someone has the freedom, like just do your thing. There's not as much pressure. Like maybe it's not like your actual team. You can kind of like, I think you can kind of just like let loose and go crazy, right? And the pressure's not there. But I think playing on the team, and I think one of the weaknesses of us at the start of a tournament is we dive too deep into like getting really specific about setups and stuff, and it ends up just being like too much. So much like you're thinking about so much that you're just like losing all of your jewels, and then you're just losing the game because I mean you could do the best setups ever, but if you're losing your jewels and getting launched out of bases, it doesn't matter. So I think that was Prenet 3 was a bit of that. But admittedly, by finals, she definitely got her groove. Obviously, that wouldn't have been reflected in her stats because the stats had everything else. But by the last day, she was very much doing very well, and in training at home, she's been doing very well as well. So, yeah, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough to stand out then. Like yeah, Fagan played very very well at Prenuts 3, so I'd say based on that. I barely saw you at. I saw you guys like 1 game, and then I got to ref some, and I didn't see you when I was refing. So blame that if anything.
All right. Well, you're just giving me fuel, mate. You're giving me fuel. I need to be your retrospective standout players in the review. Nah, fair enough. Alrighty. Have you guys got any last things you'd like to say about my team, the Aftershock boys, before we move on?
I think I placed you guys too high. One of you is gonna get sick, and it's gonna be tragic. There's no way. There's no way you last an entire tournament with a 5-man team. We're like planning to play with 3 at this point with 6. Like.
Hey, we're gonna be on that chicken, rice, and broccoli diet.
That's crazy.
We're gonna have like the guy in Cat in the Hat, like the "you're fired," dude. We're gonna have the hand sanitizer bloody holster thing, like you know.
Jeez.
No fast food, no takeout noodles. That messed us up last time. We got absolutely annihilated by takeout noodles in Bendigo. They like to think it was my cooking butter chicken. It wasn't. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of the elephant in the room. We've seen very strong teams cough one up, go into a tournament looking like really, really, really good, and then just last few days, like they have some tragic injury or something happen. Thumbs up, Gunner. That's definitely something that's looming over us. But you know, there's sharks in the water, but you still go for a swim, don't you? Live a little,
yeah.
Live on the edge.
Yeah, no, I'm so keen to see you and your other team, Apex, play each other, because like I think they are stronger on paper going into this tournament. So you guys are really gonna have to out strategy them and outdo them based on your experience to stay ahead, I think. So that's gonna be really fun to watch. What's more important, that sort of just paper skill or that like experience and more knowledge that your team obviously has, and probably I'd hope smarter strategies, right? Um, so yeah, very keen to watch you two play
Yeah,
and
yeah.
take each other out again like you did it at Adelaide.
No.
and Bendigo.
We have
The
Let's
Adelaide
Let's base swap
special.
and not hold it.
Adelaide teams hate versing each other. It's
Oh,
just
man.
awful. It's just a recipe for disaster.
You guys are gearing yourselves up to be right next to each other at the ladder
I
again.
know.
This is
I can
great.
feel it already. Just one last thing before we move on. Mikey hasn't been mentioned once. Everyone sleeps on Mikey. Mikey is like the most consistent player in the team. Everyone sleeps on his pack skills. Obviously, his stats aren't awesome, but you have to remember that 2 or 3 of those years he was a captain on like a first-year team, for instance, or has just been put in positions where he's not able to score well. Everyone's sleeping on Mikey. My standout player for the team actually is Mikey, because he'll show up every game. And yeah, I think people sleep on it. So we'll see what happens. Moving on. 5th place team we have Eclipse. So we have Taipan, Mopar, Robo, Butsa, Dark Passion, and Orkarai. I had them in 5th. Runt had them in 5th. Moldy had them 7th. Community had them 5th. Final prediction 5th. Who was talking about Eclipse? I think Runt was,
Me.
right? You played,
Yeah,
played
yeah.
3 games against these guys on a
Yeah.
finals. So.
These guys are fun. You talk about Storm and you talk about like a very consistent Queensland team that does exactly what you kind of expect and plays a very rigid, stable game. That is not these guys. These guys do crazy stuff. And I think it's like ramped up to 11 with the fact that you've got like 6 different people, all with just a ridiculous amount of experience, all making their own decisions a lot of the time, right? Which is a blessing and a curse. They all know what to do and when, but does that synergize when everyone else is making their own decisions and they've all got very different histories? Like, I think it can work if you all think the same. I don't think these guys think the same. So that's why we saw just the weirdest, wackiest stuff whenever we versed them. But it worked very well because they had the knowledge to be like, we're losing, let's get a bunch of bases. And they did that. No, sometimes they defended themselves into 3rd as well. But they got better. They got better with that. They did that far less at the end of the tournament. By the end of the tournament, they were far more aggressive. And that worked a lot better for them. And they are really playing in with that 3-man attack meta, that very aggressive style that Queensland has been trying to force in the Hobart Arena, and I think it's going to work. So just like the knowledge and experience and skill of this team alone is enough to carry them, but the fact that they're actually aggressive with it too helps a lot. And just doing crazy stuff that people don't expect often pays off. So, but yeah, they were surprisingly stable at pre-nuts 3 as well, which is good to see.
I think a lot of people, I say a lot of people, a few people in the chat are very surprised about the 5th prediction. And then once again, just to reiterate, I think just speaking to how tight the top end is, it was really hard to predict most of these teams in the top 10. You have to remember, Cobras are back, and Hobart Vikings have been Hobart Viking in their home arena. So I'll just put that out there. But Runt, who would be your standout player for this team?
That's interesting. That's tough. That's really tough. They were every single player on this team I saw do great and then do tragically throughout Pre-Nuts 3. I think Mopar was actually one of the better anchors we saw. I actually quite rated Mopar. His timing was good too. I mean, he works on the packs, but still, it's not like he trains timing. He just is good at it, and he tries to learn, which I think was something. I think I think it was something that you saw players like Butzer kind of while the game might suit him, he's not really trying that hard to adapt. Whereas players like Mopar, he's really pushing to try to learn as much as he can because he knows he's not one of the strongest on pack. So he's trying to like figure out how to be better than people without just relying on his skill. So I thought that paid off for him quite well at Pre-Nuts 3. In terms of the strongest player on the team, you'd expect it to be Dark Passion, but he sometimes just got put on a door and railed. So tough to say.
I think for me, purely off of the last Golden game we had against Eclipse at Pre-Nuts 3, my stand-up player is Orkurai, because when we dumped, for whatever reason, Beefy was by himself at one base, and the rest of us were the other one. But Orkurai denied us where all of us were, and then sprinted home and denied Beefy on 2 shots as well. So he got like 4 shot denials in like 10 seconds, and we ended up losing out by like, I think it was less than a K. So my standout player is going to be Orkurai, purely off of that. Otherwise, I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add about Eclipse?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I put them 2 places lower, which seems harsh. But I did put one up, higher in the mix, so that knocks them down a little bit. And I think I put Aftershock above these guys as well, just for a little bit of spice. I didn't play the grand final at Pre-Nuts 3, obviously, but I did watch it from inside the maze as a referee. Obviously, I know all of these players very, very well. Butzer and DP had, devastated my ZLTAC dreams on multiple occasions, and that's frustrating. But there's a lot of chaos on this team, or at least there was in finals. And I didn't go to Bendigo, so I can't judge them off of that. I can only judge them off what I saw. A lot of strong players all playing together, but maybe not as cohesively as I would have expected for a team that had come third the previous year. And so that just knocked them down. But they're certainly a team that could come 7th or could come 1st for sure. They have it. I do believe every team that's ranked from probably 6 and above has it in them to come 1st.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
good. That's good, and you included 6th. Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, you take every single one of those teams seriously. They're all A-level threats. We're really splitting hairs at this point about like who's gonna beat who. It's just random guessing from people who probably don't know what they're talking about anyway. So
God, no.
yeah, hard to say. For me, the stand-up player, just from my pre-nats experience and watching the grand finals, is Taipan. I really like the way Taipan's playing ZLTAC these days. Having watched him play for a number of years, solid player, good captain, I think. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Have we I don't know. Have we got anything we'd like to add about Eclipse before we move on? We're making good time, by the way. We're sitting at an hour and 38 minutes, and we've got 4 teams left after this.
We've picked it up then, because I think at halfway through we were still talking about Team 10 or something.
We did drag a bit at the start, but we're getting
Good.
we're doing good. Yeah, shall we move on?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Keep the time going.
All right. Best of luck to Eclipse. Obviously 3rd last year, 3rd at Pre-Nuts 3. We're expecting
3
big
people
things.
with the same tag ratio on that team.
Is it?
Anyway.
I know. And that's all over the course of 7 nationals as well. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. 4th place, we have the New Zealand Cobras. Making their return. Much anticipated. On the team, we have Moldy, V-Dark, Popeyes, Hatman, Ace, Arcane. I had them in 7th. Spicy. Run had them in 3rd. Moldy had them in 4th. Community had them in 6th. And the final one was 4th. Moldy, did you want to talk about your own team, or was it Ryan's
Yeah.
going to talk about the
No,
Cobras?
I think it's me. Yeah.
Yep, go for it.
Happy to talk about it. It's always interesting, a team coming back after a long gap, like a full team. And like the last one that I can remember happening was 2015. I think it was Boom. Boom came back, and I'd spent like my early ZLTAC career like hearing about all these old great teams. People would go on and on about how great they were, and then they got trounced, like absolutely trounced in the tournament. And so there's always a possibility that could happen to us. It's really, really hard to predict how we're going to go. I think 7th is a fair prediction. It doesn't seem that spicy to me. Community put us in 6th. I think a lot of our players have been out for a long time. V-Dark hasn't played on Cobras since 2018. some of these players have never played together on the same Cobras team. We never get to play full team. We haven't played a full team game as the Cobras since 2019 ZLTAC,
You
and that
played one.
no, that was 4 out of 5. We
Oh,
didn't
that
even
was
have
4 out of 5.
we didn't even have 5, so we haven't played a game with 5 Cobras
Yeah.
since the 2019 ZLTAC, and that was without Popeyes and VDark, because we had Margie and Four Eyes that year. So it's a real crapshoot, I think, about how we're going to go. Obviously, we have a lot of experience on the team. Some stats that aren't here because we predate the Helios era as a team. It's so hard to predict how we'll go on the picks. We haven't had a lot of Helios 2 experience. We just recently played a little mini comp in Invercargill for 2 days, and we did okay on the pack to pack, but it's against our other players who aren't A players. So all I really have to go off for our team is my own performance at pre 3. I think I did fairly well on pack to pack. My stats were nice, but I was captaining a team at the low end in a role where I got to go out and attack a lot, which can fluff your stats up. So yeah, it's hard to say. I think for us the biggest weakness is the lack of experience just as a cohesive team for years. Our conditioning is probably worse. We're old. Some people would say we're washed. It's hard to say. Maybe Run has more insight. He's played against a lot of us in recent years at invites.
Yeah, Run. Give us some insight on the Cobras. You put him in third, so
Yeah, because Moldy said he'd be in finals, the dick. He put a whipping on me. Oh, yeah, we're going to come last. Oh, yeah, 10th or whatever. Then Moldy did the exact same thing to me. We're going to be in finals, so I put him there, and now he's saying it's going to be 4th. Anyway, like, these guys are often attributed as a very smart team. And I think they still are. And I think that's a very important thing coming to a new maze on a new system is a lot of teams are going to follow what other teams do. I think Cobras are going to be one of the very few teams that are going to go, these are the fundamentals of the system in the maze and the other teams. That means we need to do this, and they're going to be one of the few teams that are actually capable of coming up with their own strategies to counter and to actually play to the fundamental strengths of the maze, not just how other people are playing it. And I think that's very important, and they're going to do well because of that. And they're also quite a nicely rounded team. And they took offense to that. That's hilarious. VDark is the perfect shape now, I might add, because he can now like do a perfect high angle, and he's one of the scariest players I've ever played because his high angle, you can't shoot his chest, but he's still super mobile. So he's very, very good at brawling now. And nobody's seen that at all except for like the few of us Hobart guys that went and versed him. And he's absolutely insane at brawling. He may well be like the best brawler when he comes and plays. Maybe aside from CV because he's got the packs or whatever, but like absolutely insane brawling. Moldy came and did very, very well. Probably like, one of the best players at Prenats easily. I'd say was one of the few that like immediately understood the system. I think it was like Link, Spider, and now Moldy would be my 3 for like picking up the system quickly, and doing very well and being a nuisance in our own maze. So I think if the rest of the team can match what these guys are doing, they're going to do very, very well. Ace, incredibly strong attacker. Hatman, very strong attacker. Popeyes and VDark, you don't want them trying to get bases. We saw them doing that at invites, and it was just denials.
Oh.
But if they kept on to do it, they're going to be great. And Addie, when we got to see her playing her role in her maze, she was cracked, like absolutely insane at farming. Her positioning was perfect. She is so bloody intelligent when she plays. It was night and day versing her in her own arena versus her in Hobart. And I think given the time to learn Hobart, she'll be very oppressive, although the very close brawling of Hobart might hurt that a little bit. But yeah, if this team plays to their strengths, I think they can beat a lot of Australian teams. They're definitely a team we're very worried about versing.
Yeah, I think given I placed them the lowest, I guess I should say something as well. And I think it was just off of, again, keep saying it, but the top 10 of this comp is I think it's one of the most stacked nationals we've ever had. It's insane. But I think I just feel like not being at nationals since 2019 was part of why I put them in 7th, because I feel like that'll potentially hurt them a bit. And as Moldy was saying, like not actually playing as a cohesive unit very much at all. You know, if it was not the Cobras and it was another team of players that just banded together to go to a tournament and they hadn't played much together, you would put them like very low, right? But I think it's because it's the Cobras, because they've got such an impressive track record of lots of seconds and fourths. Yeah, it's obviously we're going to put them in the top end, but I put them in 7th just because, yeah, the top end's getting really tight. There's lots of new teams that have come up into the top end that weren't there since the Cobras were playing and being dominant. So yeah, that's kind of just explaining the 7th placement for me. But like Moldy said before, pretty much any of the teams that we've talked about recently, the positioning of them could be drastically like all over the place, like within the same group, but like, you know, people are going to be, especially over the course of the tournament, we're going to see people jumping up the ladder, down the ladder. I think for the whole comp, but yeah, definitely a team that can very easily make finals. But yeah, we'll see. Runt, who's your stand-up player for the Cobras?
I think VDAC would be the most surprising to people because he wasn't known as that like insane brawler in the past, but now he will be. But in terms of all-round impressiveness, definitely Moldy.
All round.
I can't say anything without you thinking I'm fat shaming your team, can I? It's his fault, is it? So yeah, I think Moldy will be the strongest overall player on the team, but it's the strength of Cobras is the fact that they all know what they're doing. They're all intelligent and they all understand the game well.
Yeah. Well, Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to piece out with before we move on to the top 3 for the finalists?
Yeah, obviously I can't really pick a stand-up player, but I'll just highlight that Ace and Arcane are the last non-Queensland winners of ZLTAC and the last winners in the Nexus era. So
True.
watch out.
On the Silverbacks, right? In 2014?
Correct.
Yeah, madness. Where did you guys come in 2014?
Where do you think? Fourth.
I don't even have to ask.
We dominated the whole tournament and then had 3 golden games and just like completely shit the bed. Yeah. Good times. Don't like to think about it.
Alright, we'll move on then.
Wait, was that Sonicos?
No. Mount Wellington, 2014.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Sonicos, you guys did similar, right?
We got really sick in Sunny Coast. No, we weren't dominating Sunny Coast. We played well in finals, but Margie was nearly dead and Peters
Okay.
gave out. Yeah,
Okay.
is what it is. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, yeah, best of luck to the Cobras. I think another one of the teams that everyone's really excited to see come back and see if you old timers have still got it. Moving on. 3rd place, Spartans. On the team, we have Mad Cans, Potatoes, Europa, Link, The Leg, and Peregrine. So the same roster as Bendigo Nuts, and the same roster that played Prina 3. And yeah, I had them in 4th, Run had them in 4th, Moldy had them in 2nd, Community had them 3rd. Final prediction of 3rd place. Who was talking about the Spartans?
You are.
Me. Oh,
Yep.
How good. All right. Nah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, you know, we were saying before about Storm being just like the really solid, super solid team. Spartans is like Storm, but then on crack. I think the last like Bendigo Nuts and like Pre-Nuts 3, they were super dominant, especially going into the finals. But like before the finals, like round robin, Cascade 1, Cascade 2, they were super ultra dominant, always like in the top 3 on like the comp points ladder. And yeah, just a really scary team to come against, right? Like, you can Madcan's running around like a madman, doing his thing. I had the pleasure of actually versing the Spartans quite a few times at Prenets 3, and they were kind of doing what we saw a lot of the Queensland teams doing at Prenets 3, of like the heavier defense and then, you know, maybe a sudden three-person attack. But I think the way it kind of enveloped was a little bit different. It was a little bit more finesse to it, I guess, where it wouldn't just be like heavy defense, heavy defense, heavy defense, 3 people go. It would be like heavy defense with Mad Cans running around. And then, you know, it would always be at the right time, as Mad Cans has got everyone's attention, then 2 people come. So it was like almost like staggered a little bit, I guess. Yeah, and they would get quite a lot of bases off of it, obviously. They were doing a good job. Spartans is always a team that is very, very rich field points. I think they're one of the best teams at just identifying what the good field point spots are and making full use of them, like with their defenders. Anytime they're not being attacked, they're straight to those spots. Field points, field points, field points, field points. And then Mad Kent is obviously like in the middle of everything. So he's always going to be at least doubling with someone pretty much every time he activates. Yeah, I won't reveal. I don't want to say too much about because we did beat them twice in pre-nights. I think only one of them was like we beat them just playing a standard game. The last one in the finals, we just ended up doing a pretty aggressive dump, and I think the timing of it made it pretty much mean that either Spartans or Eclipse was going to come third because of when we chose to dump and how we dumped, I guess. So I think that's a rough position for any team to be in. But we only actually, like I say, with a standard strategy, beat them once. But I don't want to say too much. But I don't know. I'm sure. You know, the Spartans are famously like one of the best, like hardest training teams. You know, training like 3 or 4 times a week. Madcans runs the team like an absolute, you know, sergeant. You know, yes sir. Very disciplined. And he's also one of the one of the players that studies the game like a lot, like watching cops back and stuff. So I'm very certain that after Pre-Nats 3, they've gone back to the drawing board and they've been drilling the crap out of whatever weaknesses that they found in themselves. And I have a feeling when Spartans come back to Nats, they're gonna start off very, very scary. That's kind of what I'm expecting. In terms of stand-up player, I don't know. It's hard to go past like Madcans and Link. But I don't know if I can even choose one, to be honest. I could choose Peregrine, maybe, yeah. Because Peregrine, I think a lot of the Spartan success in Hobart has been off the back of Peregrine being really good in these bases. At all of the pre-nut, I'm pretty sure he's been to all 3 pre-nuts now, and at each of them he had like insane tag ratios. So that's going to be like the kind of the insurance policy for the Spartans, is Peregrine's ability to, just not get shot out of these bases. But yeah, have you guys got anything you would like to say about the Spartans?
I think, I think pre-nats 3, they played it weird. Their last, it wasn't just their finals run, it was their whole last day seemed off. But given a full tournament, iron out the weirdness there. It didn't feel like they figured out their strategy yet. And on the last day, when other teams had figured out their strategy, it seemed to punish them. But I think given the time to cement themselves and an entire competition, insanely strong team. Like this is maybe the strongest team pack on pack. They are all very, very good at especially that farming and getting those base hits. They're one of the very few teams that is brave enough to push out their anchor at Hobart. so they will actually get their anchor in those farming positions as well, which you'd think would open up opportunities to steal their base, but it never really does. We saw Peregrine having one of the highest denial stats because people think they've snuck past the defense, and then Peregrine comes back for that denial, even though he's the anchor. So very interesting that they feel comfortable enough to do that, and that is definitely something that signifies a top tier team, is being comfortable to do that. Whether it'll pay off or whether it'll get punished, I think it will pay off. I don't think teams are going to be able to punish it because their communication system down the line is so good, and they proved that even in a maze that isn't theirs, where they don't know the lines of sight, they still wouldn't get snuck past and drop easy bases when they shouldn't. So they're going to be up there on pack. It's just whether they can get those base hits, and I think given the time when they all learn how to and Link and Potato can start soloing bases, they're going to be very, very scary. Like this is, yeah, like a very intimidating team to verse because they're all just so good. And given a full competition, I think easily wouldn't be like, could easily get first over the whole comp, right? It's just, yeah. I think their structure, to me, those three-man attacks, we saw them almost functioning better on their Prenuts 2 team than their Prenuts 3 team, which is likely because their Prenuts 3 team were trying to do a whole bunch of different stuff. But when they get that system working, it was actually very, very good at Prenuts 2. So if they sub in these stronger players, their three-mans, as you say, have the potential to have that finesse that other teams don't, if they start utilizing that. And that's when this team is going to start railing people, is when they play that aggressive game, they force their way through like they do in their home maze.
Yeah, well, very well said. Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think maybe you guys have underrated this team potentially. I think the drop off on their last day at pre-nats is probably an aberration. I think they probably should have been in finals. I think Mad Cans is not only an insane just player, like one of the few players to have over a 10k average over a very large number of tournaments, but he's a good captain. He knows the game. He trains his team hard. They have very few weak links in the team. I don't know if you could call any of their players weak. Link is an absolute monster on these packs in the maze. His brawling, his paneling is just absolutely insane. The only surprise for me was that Potato did not seem to me to pick up the packs at all well. But I don't expect that to last. Potato is a class player. I think like all of these teams at the top, they could come first or seventh. But they definitely have like the drive and the dedication. And I think them like dropping out of finals was probably actually better for them in the long run, to kind of like refine and really analyze what they need to do. And they will be scary, especially in the round robin. Like I wouldn't walk into a game against them having them have played pre-nats and my team having played nothing. I would expect a pretty decent loss, just because they will have refined their really explosive attack pushes. They're very good at it. Yeah, strong team.
Well, have either of you guys got anything you'd like to say about Spartans before we move on?
I think standout player, I guess, yeah, Link.
Oh, yeah.
Just great on the packs, great with the movement, great in the he's one of those players that will happily try to be where players don't expect, which pays off very well in a mobile but defense space.
Who's your pick?
Yeah, Link as well. Like his pack skills are impressive, but also like the where he moves, where he chooses to move, and his like demeanor, the way he plays is very, very calm. He's just an impressive player.
Yeah, best of luck, Spartans. We'll see you at Nationals. Moving on. Second, we have the Hobart Vikings. How could it be?
Easily.
On the team, we have Runt, CV,
Easily not
Leopard,
first.
Karen, Twinkles, and Gandhi. I had them second, Runt had them second, Moldy had them third, Community had them second, final prediction, second place. Who's talking about the Vikings? Not
I think
Runt,
I think
Moldius.
it's me. Yeah. I mean, what can I say about the Vikings that everyone doesn't already know, right? Like they've won 3 tournaments in a row. Runt is the new god of laser tag, as far as anyone can tell. Like they're a super impressive team, and yet everyone has predicted them to not win to Catalyst, in spite of the fact that this Vikings team absolutely took Catalyst apart in that final. Like, we'll get to that when we talk about Catalyst, but like by a shockingly high amount of points in the finals, it really surprised me. So the only reason I put them, not winning is that the history of home teams and their pre-nats performances. Now, obviously, this team is a lot stronger than say the 2015 Bendigo Blitz team, but they they won their pre-nats in 2015 and then dropped to 10th place, right? And they beat the Maroons and they beat the Cobras to do it. So to me, a win in pre-nats is awesome, but it doesn't really mean anything in the long run. And the problem with this team is they really rely heavily on their on I'd say 3 out of 6 players, but to a degree 2 out of 6. Like Runt and Twinkles really push out hard, and they rely on getting a couple of cheeky bases from some incredibly dangerous / borderline illegal movement into the bases. And then they've got CV kind of backing them up as a kind of a floating mid brawler, and they know that even with 1 or 2 bases, if the whole game stays at a low base meta, they can win. But if anyone pushes the game to a high base meta, and I think with these strong attacking teams that we're seeing in the top 10, well, who do they have to fall back on? Like, look, the other players are still very good players. Like Leper has been around for a long time. Karen and Gandhi are both good players, but are they like at the same average A level of the other top teams? Perhaps not. I can't speak for Leper. I haven't seen him play in years, but for Gandhi and Karen, I don't think so. And so when you're at that level, your bottom players can kind of be a weakness that can be exploited. And I think over 2 weeks, people will figure out exactly how the Vikings are playing, because it's pretty simple when you watch it, and they'll figure out a way to counter it. But Runt and Twinkles and CV are such a ridiculously strong packing trio that they'll still make it to finals anyway. But will they win? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's very astute observation. That was definitely just to speak to what you were saying. In the game, the only for the 100% Aftershock beating Vikings at Prenets 3, it ended up being a high base game. And Runt and Twinkles got their bases, but then after that they struggled to get more, and they needed more. So I think that kind of speaks a little bit from my experience. I can kind of back that up a bit, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We haven't, like, obviously, you were kind of talking about like Bendigo Blitz in 2015 taking games off of good teams in the pre-nats leading up to that, and then obviously they didn't make it to finals and stuff. But I feel like we haven't seen as dominant of a pre-nats run as the Vikings has put on.
Agreed.
I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before, which is crazy considering how high level just like the entire player base is in general nowadays.
Well,
Obviously,
what if
there's
we
a
had
lot
pro,
of
right?
yeah.
What if we had
Helios
pro
is totally
packs?
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the compounding thing of Home Arena and Helios 2 definitely has done the Vikings a lot of favors, but I don't know. It's hard, such a strong, and like it's not like they got the finals and just scraped their wins. Like every single finals were like ridiculously dominant by stupid amounts. So this team could very easily come first, for sure. I think, but yeah, I don't know. Runt, have you got anything you'd like to say? Obviously, you don't want to say much, but is there anything you
Let's
would
not
like
go
to?
saying high base games around the chat. Everyone knows now. Somehow people didn't work it out at Predators 3, but let's not go doing that. I was amazed to walk into finals and other teams wanted to play a defensive game. That was great. Yeah,
days.
but I don't think it'll last. Oh man.
Moldy, who's your stand-up player for the team?
I mean, I mean, it has to be Run. I watched him in a pre-nets. I think one of the finals games against Catalyst. He went into green T. He already had it. He ran around the T over and over again while Catalyst spent like 11 lives trying to get him out, and he already had the base. Like, that is just masterful level of trolling. I could not believe my eyes. It's got to be Run.
Yeah, I definitely remember watching that on the stream and going like, "What is going on? This is crazy." He just decided to just to add salt to injury, insult
Nobody
to
likes to
injury.
step off the tee. It's so fun though.
Lesson learned from Runt, everyone. If you just have fun, remember to have fun, you'll have as dominant performance as Runt has been having. Did goddamn. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to talk about these guys anymore. Nah. Have we got anything? Runt would be my pick for stand up player as well. It's pretty hard to go past Runt, just given how dominant all of the pre-nuts performances have been. And I mean, even though we did beat them 100% of the time, 100% of the time, Brunt also got our base in like 13 seconds. So there's that side of the coin as well. Yeah, I don't know. Anything, any last bits we'd like to say about the Hobart Vikings before we move on?
We are a team famous for getting sick. That is our main concern.
Yeah, I mean, like Gandhi
Ditto.
like couldn't talk, right? At Prenas 3.
Yeah, some would say every competition he's ever played. I think he licks doorknobs as a hobby and then spreads that all to us. Because I mean, we played pre-nuts 3 finals. Half of us had COVID. Gandhi couldn't talk. Like last year, we just rode ourselves out by the majority of the team got secondary infections from the flu, and we were dying. So I'm gonna be stuck on site a lot of this comp. I'm gonna hopefully wear a full hazmat suit if there's one available, but I think we're gonna die, unfortunately. But if not, I hope we make finals. I really do. But yeah, I don't see us beating Catalyst.
Yeah, I think everyone in general, before we move on, I think this Nats is particularly exciting because for the first time in a while, it's looking like we might have like maybe even 2 non-Queensland teams in the finals. Wouldn't that be insane, huh? Yeah, very much looking forward to just, I don't know, just freshening up. Come on, it's getting a bit stale up there. It's getting a bit stale. Let's get some fresh blood up there. Very much looking forward to that, and I'm sure you guys are going to lead the charge, breaking into the finals, taking a spot off of the Queenslanders. Yeah, I don't know. Good luck to the Vikings, but not too much good luck. Not too much, just enough. Moving on to our last team of the night. First place, the Catalyst boys. On the team, Grub, Whamfox, Husky, Wax, Dodge, Lilbo. So almost the same roster as last year, except Volley's out, Lilbo's in. Lilbo came third on Eclipse in 2022, so it's not like they picked up some slouch. But unanimously across the board, you can see everyone predicted these guys to come first, and what do you know, they get a final prediction of first place. Yeah. Runt, were you going to talk about the Catalyst? Were you going to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I got to verse these guys in our maze on our system, and it sucked. Like, our first game against them, we are like, wouldn't it be funny to dump on them? That'll screw them over real hard. And they almost beat us. Like, they should not be that good at that quickly. It's insulting. Like, they pick up the maze so fast. They, from what I can tell, along with the other Queensland teams like Eclipse, kind of pioneered this whole 3-man attack thing. And they're the ones that really make it work. You know when it's coming, but it hurts nonetheless. And a lot of the time it's kind of like, let's do a 3-man attack. It hits you, and then about half the time it fails and they just reset. They lose some pack points. The next time they go again, they get the other 50% of the time. and they get 3 bases because they just lock it, and you're just on repeat dying on the outside because there's 3 of them, and you're just doubling off, and then all it takes is one of the insanely skilled players on this team to get better than a double, which they're very good at because they're all insane, and then they get that 3 rotation and they just cycle. So it's a strategy which works very well because the insane pack skill just allows them to outbrawl everyone and just force the attack through and just keep on forcing it through as soon as it lands. So I'm very impressed by them being able to do that because for so many years they were known as, yeah, let's just play a standard 3-2, 2-man attack, 3-man D. Call it a day. We're just better on pack than everyone else. Don't even need to learn a different strategy. But then they came to our maze, and before the comp even started, they had a new one, which everyone is trying to do now.
They're doing 2-3 now.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And they can leave their 2-man D because their defenders are so bloody good. You leave it's like Wham Fox and Husky at home. That's better than most 3-man defenses. Like, it's insane. So it just allows them to do that so well and just, yeah, really force the meta in that direction. And they've got the perfect team to do it. Yeah, like the only way for other teams to beat these guys is to outdo them on strategy, but that's not even a weakness for them. So I don't know how anyone's going to beat them. At least not consistently, right? Like, you need to be able to beat them consistently, and as soon as they start to learn the maze, Wax like shoots bases without getting denied. That's it. Like,
Even if he does get denied, they still manage to pull out wins. Just look at Sunny Coast Nats. But yeah, who would be your standout player for the team? Run.
Lilbo was great. Lilbo is just such a fantastic pickup for this team. He was arguably their best player, which is going to annoy them so much at 3.3. But no, I think Wax's training, playing like screen out, really trying to force himself to have a good time on this system really is paying off. And he was very up and down, but when he was up, he was a monster on these packs in this maze. So I think it is still Wax to watch out for. And yeah, it's a team of stand-up players is the issue with versing these guys.
Moldy, what have you got to add to Catalyst? You've obviously versed them in the finals before in Adelaide, right? And in 2016 as well.
Yeah, I didn't play Adelaide.
Actually, no, they didn't. You guys got 4th in Adelaide. It was Blue Steel made it, but you played them in 2016.
No, I didn't even play the Adelaide comp. I wasn't there. But yeah, so 2016 though, we played them in a grand final in pre-nets 3, and we did again in finals, and then we beat them at Albury pre-3 before our Albury comp went to shit. So yeah, I've played against these guys for a long time. I put them in first because it's the safe bet, it's the money bet. You know, the top 4 in that list have won the last 4 ZLTACs in a row. You'd be stupid not to put them in first. But I do think they're more vulnerable than they might have ever been because of the strength of the top 10 or even the top 5. Right, it's so much stronger now than
the top 6.
Yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, okay, sure, top 6. Anyway. Yeah. Look, the teams are strong, and I didn't necessarily expect Catalyst to win pre-3, but I don't know how or why they let Runt do to them what he did to them. They did win the last game, which is very right. They won their game out of green, which is very very encouraging. Out of the best base in the maze, but yeah, they're very strong. Yeah, hard to beat. If they're doing more 3-man attacks now, that's scary because their 2-man defense is insane as well. So always a scary team. I just am hoping someone, maybe us, maybe someone else, will knock them off their perch and just, take the smugness out of Wax. That would be nice. Yeah. That would be cool. Yeah, and as for standout players, I'm gonna go Wham Fox. Wham Fox, I think, in recent years, from the last time I've seen him, has worked on some of the weaknesses in his game. He's playing a much more quick and agile game than I've seen out of him before, and he's kind of like the core of their defense as His pushes are great. His calling's great. His brawling's good. Yeah, really rate him. Very
We saw a
impressed
game where
watching
they
at
sat
P3.
Wham and their defense was crumbling. Yeah, he makes a huge difference on there.
Yeah, I think obviously it's easy to talk about Wax and Husky. Husky is particular, like being one of, if not the best last lines we've ever seen. But I think the underpinning of that gets overlooked all too often is that you know, a lot of the success of a last line comes from how good your door defenders are, and Wham Fox is yeah. I think when you talk about the Catalyst Wolfpack defense, you can't just talk about Husky. It's Husky and Wham Fox, and then whoever they've got on the other door is like just some cracked player, right? But yeah, I think a lot of the success of the Wolfpack Catalyst team comes off of the back of Wham Fox on the door. So yeah, let's hype up Wham Fox. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know. Have we got anything else we'd like to say about Catalyst?
I just want to point out all the strategy stuff. I attribute that to Grub. He hasn't been shouted out yet. He's doing great as
Yes.
captain.
Grub is an excellent captain.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the big questions going into 2022, right? Was they did 2020 was the last year as the Wolfpack, and the last year with Lakeo and Payne. And obviously Lakeo was captaining and leading the team back then. One of the big questions going into Bendigo was obviously Grub's a phenomenal player, but is he going to be able to kind of fill the shoes of Lakeo? And he does fill the role differently, but he's more than proved himself. He's a phenomenal player, proved himself to be a phenomenal in-game leader and lead attacker. Yeah, I don't know, just kudos to all these guys. Yeah.
Hey, Queensland players in the chat, I can probably summon all of you by saying anchor. Who started the 3-man attack trend at Hobart? Because it wasn't a thing until you guys had your 5-hour trading block, and then every one of you was doing it. Who started that? There we are, we caught him.
they've been summoned. Yeah, it's an interesting point because it's like it kind of feels like everyone was just doing it once they got to Prenuts 3, right? But it had to start somewhere.
It was the Queensland players, I know it. We saw it when they trained that night. Yeah, we saw it the next day. It was them that were doing it, and every other team was trying to latch on to what they were doing. So yeah.
I don't know. They're going to keep that a secret from us, maybe. Or they're just going to be busy raging about...
No, there's no way all of them are that in line. Blitzer or DP?
Fifi once again would like to say that Maroons are responsible for everything good that comes out of anything anywhere.
I wouldn't be too surprised. I mean, Cairns was running it at Prenuts too, so I wouldn't be surprised if it started there.
Yeah.
But surely, Grub, take credit.
Anyway, next slide. Here's the final predictions. I'm just listing where everyone had everyone. Yeah. I don't know. I'm super excited. I feel like Nats is always exciting, but I feel like this is one of the most exciting Nats I can remember. If for nothing else, other than how the level of competition's gone, whoop, how tight the top end is. We've got states rising up that haven't typically been in the top tier before. With Hobart, New South Wales. I mean, obviously Hobart has been, but not in the fashion you have been right now. Adelaide, Hobart, and New South Wales with Rampage as well. Cobras are back. New system. This is super exciting. Yeah, I don't know. I can't wait. We're only a week away, right? Surely some people will start training a week from now tonight, right? Is there Saturday night training?
There's Friday night training. We need to actually post out about it, but yeah, 8 to 10 p.m. We're always open with our trainings. Anyone that wants to come can come. Anyone that's here on Wednesday, 6 to 8 training. Anyone that's here on Thursday, 6 to 8 training as well. We would like everyone playing laser tag. So if you want to come play laser tag, if you're in LA, come play laser tag. We're all good with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, less than a week away, and people are going to be in Hobart training. I mean, some people are already there, as you were saying with Sad Lamp and Polgrim. But man, I just can't wait. Um, boys, have you got anything you'd like to say before we close up the show?
Yeah, just apparently 3-mans have been a thing in Queensland for ages, which is fascinating because I was pretty sure that Rumble we didn't see many 3-man attacks, Sunny Coast Nats we didn't see many 3-man attacks, and Brisbane Nats we didn't see many 3-man attacks. So it's a really interesting way for the Brisbane meta to evolve to. I'm very curious about that. I might follow up about that later. What? No, come get your welcome packs. You'll love them.
Moldy, have you got anything you'd like to peace out with? A message you'd like to leave us with?
The Cobras. We're very excited to come back. Hopefully, we're going to put on a good performance, and we're old as hell, so go easy.
Yep. Take it easy on the old timers, huh? Run, anything you'd like to say to close up the show?
I mean, between 3 of our predictions, that's a no Queensland final, right? That's how this is gonna work out.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Man.
Let's see.
Can't wait till
Let's
it's old
see.
Queensland and we're all just depressed again.
I would just quit. I reckon
Yeah.
I'll just quit if I'm honest.
Too many times.
No, can't.
They want a dark horse pick.
Dark horse pick. I mean, we kind of highlighted on it a bit before. I think a dark horse in terms of potentially climbing a lot higher than they're predicted. I would say Rampage. In terms of a dark horse making it into the finals,
Apex.
yeah, I think Apex is always a good dark horse pick. I think. Yeah. What about you guys? Who's your dark horse picks for just winning, like climbing a lot of spots on the last day, and B, making it to the finals and they not expected to be there.
Climbing a lot of spots. I feel like it'd be one of the lower teams because they were crazy down there.
Outlaws for me for climb,
Interesting.
and then Apex to make finals as the dark horse.
Yeah. I feel like Adrenaline are always a team that would just do randomly well, even though they're like a new team.
They did have a big climb on the last day in Bendigo at their first Nats, and I think that's just an Adelaide trend in general. I don't think an Adelaide team at Nats has ever dropped spots.
Oh,
I
we
think
are
we
very
always
jealous. We are very, very jealous.
Eva has the inverse effect.
Yeah. As for finals pick, I get to have Cobras because nobody else had them as their finals pick, so they're my dark horse. Don't disappoint, Molly.
Do my best.
Alrighty. Well, there's a few questions in the chat. I think in terms of someone was asking for a new player shout out for a fantasy pick. I don't know. I feel like Wheezy from Anomaly is going to be super, super cheap, and he's going to have very high tag ratios, so that might be a good pick, and I expect them to do well, so they'll be winning games. That'd be my pick. Runt and Moldy, have you got a fantasy pick before we move on, or before we close up, finish?
I mean, for fantasy, we shot ourselves in the foot by running fantasy for PN3 and showing everyone how many points Tiger was going to bring in. When I'm like, fantasy for PN3, this will be amazing in every sense, except for the fact that now my Tiger pick won't be special, and now he's going to be ramped all the way up in price for nationals. So there was a very nice devil on my shoulder being like, don't run it for pre-nats 3. That way you can pick Tiger for fantasy and win nats. But no, Tiger's an insane player, and that effect is only going to be made more apparent when he's actually playing the low tier games. I think he's going to roll them there. As for strongest new player we've seen this year, I think Jelly might be the strongest player from all the pre-nats that I could see out of a new player. Ems was quite impressive, I remember. Who else was there? Yeah, those would be my standout new players.
Moldy. I mean, maybe could you do you have I don't know, from the Raptors? Is there someone from the Raptors that you think would be a really good pick?
Oh, Dika. I stand by Dika.
Yeah, so like Deke is a really solid pick, but I honestly, based on what I've seen recently, I might pick a TT or Trader, based on the role that I think they're gonna play. Um, yeah, TT picks up just a shitload of points. He's very crafty with the way he goes about points. And then from dysfunctional, the two unknowns, Guerrero and Chiru, both depending on how they're played in the maze, could both have the capacity to score highly as well. But if I wanted a super cheap pick from a complete unknown, maybe I'd pick TT on the Raptors. I think would be my fantasy pick.
Yeah. You said TT and Trader as if they were the same person, but they're different, right?
No, they're two different. TT or
Okay.
Trader,
Okay.
both good players, both good picks. So like they're all good
Okay.
players, they're all good picks. But
Was
those
TT
two in
at
particular,
Invites?
he was not. He was not
Okay, that's why I'm
invites. So
confused.
you don't know him. He
Yeah.
wasn't at 20
Oh,
invites either. So you've never seen him.
interesting.
But he's considered by many to be like their first or second best player in the whole region. So
That is a
don't sleep on
good
him.
insight then for fantasy.
Alrighty,
If the
well.
Raptors,
Oh yeah, you go. You finish.
oh, sorry, I was just saying if the Raptors are cheap, just pick them up. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Moldy and Run. It's been an absolute pleasure. We managed to do it a little bit quicker than the bottom 15 one, so kudos to us for smashing through. We finished at 2 hours 27 minutes. Not bad. Not bad at
Nice.
all. Especially for nuts. I don't know. Like pre-nuts, we were able to do 2 hours, but I don't know. There's a lot we want to say for a nuts, right?
Yep, and is the plan for Nat still to break it down into 3 tiers and then do the reviews?
Yeah, so I think in terms of for the review streams, the reviews always take longer, and we try to go a little bit more in depth for the reviews because predictions is at the end of the day all just conjecturing, guessing, really. The reviews will probably be split into 3 streams. And again, I'll try and pick guests from around where like people that are gonna actually be able to provide some insight. In terms of content at Nats, we have plans to kind of do what we did at Bendigo. If you guys remember, that's when we actually launched Laser Sports Academy and doing, I'd filmed interviews with like the winners from side events. I didn't end up doing all of them. I would like to try really hard to do all of the side event winners this year. Maybe some more impromptu interview stuff, some vlog type stuff, but I think realistically we won't have the setup to upload stuff while we're there. And then also between Spider being on Rampage, Butzer on Eclipse, and me being on Aftershock, I think a lot of our focus and attention is going to be on just the tournament itself. And then, so, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what to expect content wise. Obviously, the VOD for the bottom 15 has been uploaded. It was just waiting for some final touches. That's done, so I'm gonna upload that tomorrow probably, and I'll try and have this top 15 uploaded to YouTube as well for people to review and look through, maybe to try and help them prepare for games at nationals. Because and I'll probably export the spreadsheet and maybe even the slides as well. Just some extra resources for teams to use, especially for newer teams when they're not sure who they're coming up against. I'll make all of those things available on the Laser Sports Academy Facebook group. What do we reckon? We happy to finish there?
Yeah, I think that was good. Almost there. Oh man, next week. That's insane. That's actually insane.
Next week. Blinken will be there, guys. So thank you very much once again to Moldy and Runt for joining me. Thank you to everyone in the chat. This has been the most viewed stream we've done for Laser Sports Academy. I've been kind of keeping an eye on it. And I think it's the most viewed stream we've ever done. So thank you very much for being a part of that. And thanks for everyone being engaged and talking in the chat. It's been a good time. It's going to be fun. And we'll see you at Nationals in less than a week. See you later, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See you there.